Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Fish Talk video. Today we've got part 2 of our top tips for trolling in alpine lakes. Thank you to everyone who made comments and watched part 1, where we got a really good reaction to it. So we've got some more great tips coming up in this video. Now our next tip, Jamie, is that open water in these alpine lakes,
big lakes,
holds fish.
It does.
And we see a lot of people that want to fish up really close to the tree line, and they'll be catching fish, don't get me wrong, but they'll also be catching a lot of timber.
Yes, and especially if you're using fenders and that sort of stuff, it can be very expensive.
It's not only expensive, but when you set up 4 rods, 2 with lead lines and 2 with downriggers, it takes a lot of setting up, and we've got another tip later on about that as well. You don't want all the downtime of having to bring everything in when one gets hung up.
Yeah.
And we get hung up often, don't get us wrong, but you really don't have to be hard up against the trees.
No, you don't. There are times to be hard up against the trees, and if the fish happen to be there, but if they're out in open water, then stay out in the open water. Yeah. And especially if you've got a really good sounder that can sound fish well, you'll find them out in open water on a regular basis, and sometimes it's worth just, rather than going up one side of an arm and down the other, crisscrossing, going upwards and back and forwards from it. And often when you're doing a turn, you might get a fish, or right out in the middle of the area, you'll get a fish as well.
Next one. Keep moving and leave your other rods out when you hook up.
By all means, if you want to slow down, you can. Yep. Or if it's a really good fish, if you're out in open water, you can turn your boat and stop.
Well, that's true. But we see a lot of boats stop regardless, and then, you know, people are frantically trying to get rods up and then fish swim across others. If you leave it going and running, and if you're fishing, it's much better to fish up there with a partner, I can tell you now.
It makes it a lot easier.
And Clinton, if you're watching this, I understand your pain yesterday up there trying to fish on your own. But if you're fishing with a partner and you know each other well, one person can just keep the boat running straight, can get hold of the net, get everything ready. It's going to take you a good 60 seconds to 2 minutes to get the fish to the back of the boat anyway. So you've got plenty of time to get things right.
Unless you are fishing directly behind your bomb, and the rainbow trout drops, bounces out 10 feet behind you.
Yeah, that's true.
And that just becomes a mad panic.
So yeah, keep it going. And the other reason to keep it going is, you'd be amazed at how many times we believe that trout loosely school.
Yep.
And you'd be amazed how many times another rod will go off when that happens.
Well, we've seen that out in even Lake Hume, where you would say that, you know, there's a concentration of fish there because of the food source.
Yes.
It's not necessarily schooling, but the concentration of fish is there because of the food source.
That's it.
Your second rod comes through, or your third one, what have you, and bang, you get an extra fish on, which is great.
Exactly right. Now, the art of netting, Jamie. Take your time.
Please.
When that fish comes to the back of the boat, he's usually just cruising along. He doesn't really know that too much is going wrong until he sees you.
Or the boat.
And he almost senses your panic.
Yes.
If he's a big one. And we see a lot of people who will lunge at the fish with the net.
Yeah.
Let the person who's holding the rod dictate what happens with the net. Let them tell you where he wants the net, and have the net in the water and swim the fish to the net. Let it swim back into the net.
And then just lift the net up.
Yep.
And then it should make no problems whatsoever.
And use a net with an open mesh, Darren.
Those Enviro nets are really good for the fish rods.
Oh, they are very good for the fish, but they create a lot of drag. They're a very hard net to use when you're trolling. If you're going to keep your bait going. If your boat is stopped, they're fine.
Probably easier to use, but if you're moving, an open mesh net makes it a lot easier.
So just make sure you swim the fish back into the net rather than try and lunge at it with your net. And you'll find you don't lose that many, really, do you?
We lose the odd one or two, but
we often have them come up in the net.
Yes, that's often been the case, but it's not necessarily the netting fault. It's just that they're not hooked as well as they should be.
Go with what works. By that I mean, if a certain colour, if your mate's just caught his 5th fish using pink and purple, then go through your tackle box and find pink and purple, because that's obviously what they want. We have had days up there where all 4 lures have been exactly the same. And I think we said on our last video, we've then giving it away to a bloke who's got his kids at the boat ramp.
With no fish.
With no fish. So here, have these, off you go, we're going home.
Yeah. Yeah, go with what works. And our good mate Laurie Moretti, he proved that out in Lake Hume one day where he was stubborn enough not to use a spotted dog. He refused, I'm not going to use it, I'm not going to use it. And after about 4 or 5 fish, stuff it, I'll put one on, and within 5 minutes had one in.
That's exactly
in
right.
The boat. So.
And that goes for, you know, if you happen to be using bait and your mate's catching them on a bullet lure or something, you know, just dispense of the bait.
Yep.
You know, you're out there as a pair, you're out there as a team.
Yes.
And the idea is to get the fish in the boat before you get home.
Yeah.
Check the lure or attractor action at the boat.
Yeah. And
I think that's a good one. You know, before you let it out, just let it run beside the boat, because what it looks like beside the boat is what it's going to look like 20, 30, 40 metres.
And most good lure manufacturers, like bullet lures, they're well tuned.
Yeah.
So the lure, you put it out and it runs straight. But if it starts to run on its side, not working properly, you've got the opportunity just to bend the nose of it a little bit, especially if you've been hung up in particular or got a big fish on.
Yep.
And just recheck that lure tuning to work. And then on the flip side of that, Roscoe, if you're watching your rod and it's pulse, 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 and then stopping and pulse, and then stopping and what have you, you know that there's a problem.
Yeah, exactly right.
Check it, get it in.
You've got to get to know what sort of action is imparted by the different lures. Tassies, because they've got that sideways sway, will give you a rod tip that's doing this.
Yep.
You know, a Rapala or something like that, or a Merlin will be
flutter,
much more of a flutter.
And a pulse, you'll get a pulse out of cowbells, fenders, whichever one.
Exactly right.
And we should say about cowbells or fenders, we prefer fenders.
Yep.
We've had more success with that with fenders. We've got cowbells with us. We just don't tend to use them.
No, we don't.
But each to their own in that terms.
Different lures need different speeds. So if you're going to go out there, you can only have one speed, but you can have a number of different lures.
Yeah.
So if you've decided that you're going to be trolling at 4 to 4.5 kilometres an hour, you need lures out the back that can all handle that sort of a pace.
Which Tassie Devils will be able to, bullets, Rapalas, that sort of thing, Merlins, whatever you might like to use. But you're not going to use a flatfish at that pace.
No, you're not, and it might be a bit of a struggle with defenders as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Going too fast like that.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you're going to have streamlined lures out there that can handle the pace, make sure everything can do exactly the same.
Yeah.
And if you're dropping back to the lower speed and you want to troll your fenders with worms and mud eyes, but you still want a lure out there, that's where an old flatfish or something, or even bullets and things, they've got a really good range. They can troll down slow, but they can go quite fast. You've got to remember, these lures are used in creeks and rivers, and you retrieve them a whole lot faster than you would troll them.
You retrieve them at all sorts of different speeds in creeks and rivers.
Yep.
The other one for slow times is a lofties. Because they've got that accentuated bend in the lure, and you can use a lofties if you want that Tassie style lure.
So I've got combos down here, Jamie. So for slow trolling, you might have a combination of worms and mud eyes. And if you want lures as well, you could put out crick hoppers, bungle bugs and flatfish. Yeah,
lofties would add into that if you...
Yep. And then faster trolling, Tassie style lures, bullets, Rapalas, Merlins, anything like that.
Oh, well, there's heaps
Pontoon 21s, there's all sorts of different lures.
You've got your divers now. What are they called, Roscoe? The ones that you've got to go out and get a bank line to buy.
Oh, double clutch.
That's right.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I know, you've got to sell a kidney, mate.
Sell a kidney,
to buy one of them.
They're great lures, though.
Single hooks or assist hooks versus treble hooks.
Treble hooks.
We have never used treble.
Not any longer. No, the single hooks we find give an adequate catch rate.
Absolutely.
And make it much easier to release a fish if you don't want to keep it, than rather than trying to yank. Yeah. You can often, they'll, as you said before, pull out the net. And trolling worms and mud eyes and that sort of stuff, For mud-eyes in particular, you want to have a hook that's roughly the same size as the mud-eye.
Yes.
So if you've got a big cooter, you want a size 2
Yep.
long shank hook. If you've got a little bug mud-eye, you might want a size 8
Yep.
or something like that. Make sure the hooks are straight and haven't got that kink in them that a lot of bait hooks have.
Yep.
And then just vary your size. I mean, as I said, you use a much bigger hook than we use for trolling worms, but it's each to their own and whatever you feel most comfortable with.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that sort of covers it pretty well, Jane.
If you want to use these tips, feel welcome. If you don't, then feel welcome as well. It's
exactly right.
It's just from our experience.
A lot of what we've told you, for some of you that are watching now, you know exactly what we're talking about, but there'll be plenty of people out there that haven't trolled at all up there.
Yeah.
And just need a few tips on how to do so. Okay, folks, so thanks for watching, and if you like what you saw, hit the subscribe button and the little notification bell, and you'll get more. And we'll see you in our next Fish Talk video, Jamie.
Hopefully, looking forward to it, Ross.